Hello, everybody. I've had some requests to do a more detailed video about my industrial sink and my plumbing setup. And that's proved to be a little bit of a problem for me because it ends up being like a 2-hour video. And so I thought I would kind of just break this down into steps. And I think the likely place to start here is with the sink itself. Because if I'm honest, on my first video that I showed off my sink, there were some things that I probably glossed over that you probably should know if you do want to put in a industrial sink in your van. So let's start with that. So this is a restaurant wall-mounted hand sink. So you'd get this at a restaurant supply store. Usually, if you search online, you'll find them listed as a hand sink or a wall-mounted hand sink. We'll talk a little bit more about my suggestions on where you should buy one of these. But for the meantime, I just want to go over the one point that I think I didn't really talk too much about, which is that it is a wall-mounted sink. So that being, if you have a flat level wall, say a restaurant or say your garage that you wanted to put a sink in, this is the easiest sink to install. It is just designed to clip onto a wall. And if you're doing that, it's very simple. If, like me, you don't have a van with finished walls or vertical walls that are level, you're going to run into a little problem like I did. So I'll show you what I did to work around that. And I had found an old picture of an earlier version of how I originally had installed the sink, and I'll kind of talk you through that here. So this is an early look at my sink cabinet, and I want you to notice this little clip or rail that runs along this little false wall that I had created. This little clip or rail is the only thing that attaches a wall-mounted sink to a wall, and I need you to remember that because we're going to talk about that little rail later on. So like I said, that was an earlier version of just the way that I figured out to install it for myself. Since then, I've changed the design a little bit. So I basically put the sink in kind of a rudimentary cabinet. So it's got support on both sides as well as behind. Even though the sink is not designed to be installed that way, I found that was really the best way for me, really for two big reasons. One is that when I was driving around with the sink installed the way it's designed to be installed, which is just hanging off the wall, the sink did kind of bounce around a bit. So I didn't like that. The other thing is that by putting it in some sort of cabinet, it really makes the sink much stronger. I can lean on it really well, which, you know, being in a tight space like this is, I do, tend to lean on it from time to time just because I'm stuck in kind of a small space. There have been a couple of other advantages too, in that I now have a space to kind of lock my fresh water tank in, which is just a 5-gallon bucket. So that gets held into place really well. I don't have to worry about it falling over as I drive. The other thing is that it does allow me space to hang stuff. So I put a little shelf for my water filter here. So there are advantages to having the sink in a cabinet. So that is why I have it in a cabinet and not mounted exactly the way it was intended to be mounted. So I like having the cabinet, even though technically you don't really need it with this style of sink. Now the other thing that I was going to talk about here is just where to purchase a sink like this. So there's a few reasons why I don't suggest you buy a restaurant hand sink online. Now, you certainly could. You can find them on eBay, you can find them on Amazon, you can Google restaurant wall-mounted hand sink, and you're going to find loads of them. Why I wouldn't suggest you buy one online is from buying a few of these in the past, there's a few things that I've noticed. One is that the dimensions that they give you online, and in fact, the dimensions that they give you on the box when you go into the store to buy these, is what I can see kind of a general size. It's not going to be an exact size. So if you're retrofitting one of these sinks into your van, or if you're like me and you had really a specific sink size in mind, you really want to go into a store with your tape measure, make sure you get it out of the box if it's in a box, and measure it. For some odd reason, the dimensions that they give you online are usually not very accurate. So that's just one thing that you'll notice, especially if you go in and look at one. The other thing that you'll notice is that there's a range of quality with these sinks. So most of the sinks are going to be really high quality and much better quality than you'd find at Home Depot. But if you see one online and it's a lot cheaper than another one and you wonder why, it's usually because the metal is not quite as thick. So gauge-wise of metal, stainless steel and metal is sold in gauge, just like wire is sold in gauge. And those gauges don't make sense to me. What does make sense to me is going into the store and feeling just how strong the metal is. Taking my knuckle and just knocking on the sink will give you a good indication of the quality of the sink. Obviously, a better gauge sink is going to be a little bit heavier. And while that is not a big deal, we're not going to knock them around like they do in a professional kitchen. But the lighter gauge sinks are noisier. So when you run some water in the sink and it hits the bottom, if you drop something in the sink and it hits the bottom, the thinner ones act like a drum and are really loud. I don't really think that transfers outside the van very much, but you may think that it will, and I know a lot of people are really worried about stealth, and so that is something to keep in mind. Do you want to buy a drum, or do you want to buy one that's going to deaden the sound of anything that you put in it? What I did for mine, because I have kind of a mid-grade quality sink, and I bought the mid-grade sink because it had the dimensions that I wanted, and so that's why I had bought this sink. But I just wrapped the bottom of it with some insulation. This is duct insulation. You can find it at Home Depot or Lowe's, either in the ductwork section or near the water heaters. So it's just designed to wrap around ductwork. This one is open cell foam, and it has some foil on the outside. Wasn't the best quality stuff, but it does the job. You can hear when I knock on the sink, it makes more of a thud than a loud knock. So my suggestion is, if you still want to install one of these industrial sinks in your van, and I think that you should, I would suggest that you first go online, check out the sizes that they come in. They come in literally dozens of sizes. Most of the sinks that you'll find are going to be quite a bit shallower than this one is. And most of them are going to be a bit smaller. They really are just designed to be used for hand washing. Now, my point here is that decide what you want to use your sink for. So I wanted to use my sink, obviously, to wash my hands. I wanted to use it to clean up, to do a bird bath. And yeah, I'm going with bird bath if anybody's following along and saw my earlier video. I also wanted to make sure I had enough room for any kind of large dishes that I was going to wash. And I have, in a pinch, I have used this to wash laundry. Now, I don't do it very often, but having a deeper and bigger sink allows me to do that when I want to. So that was what I wanted out of the sink. If you just want it to be a hand washing sink, obviously, you can find one that's much smaller. So my suggestion is look online, see what they have size-wise, take in consideration what you're going to use the sink for, and then don't buy it online. Just do a Google search. What you want to do is you want to type into Google restaurant supply store near me. You're probably going to find that there's quite a few restaurant supply stores in your area, unless you live in a really small town. Pick the biggest 2 or 3 restaurant supply stores. Make sure you take a tape measure when you go in, and just see what they have on offer. Now, the reason I say go to the biggest one, there's actually 2 reasons. One is the bigger restaurant supply stores are going to carry several sizes of these. So the restaurant supply store that I went to first had one size. They just had one sink. The second one I went to was quite a bit bigger. They had 3 different sizes of these, and this was the one that I liked the best. There's another reason why you may want to go to a restaurant supply store, and that is if you don't mind something that is a little bit banged up and scratched up, every restaurant supply store is going to sell used equipment. Restaurants go out of business all the time, and basically they just liquidate everything that's in it, and all of that used equipment goes to a restaurant supply store. So the bigger the restaurant supply store, the more chance you're going to find one of these that's used. And it may be a little dented, and it may be a little scratched. It may need to be cleaned, probably will need to be really cleaned up. But you can get a really good deal on these. So that is why I say to always go into a restaurant supply store versus buying one online. So remember that little rail that I used to hang the sink on my little false wall here? Remember I said that I'm going to talk about that later? This is my last tip. I've bought 5 of this type of sink, either for me or for a restaurant that I've worked for in the past. Every sink that I bought didn't come with that little hanging rail. I had to ask for it specifically. Now, the first time I bought one of these sinks, I didn't realize it didn't come in the box. So I got all the way home, and then I had to drive all the way back to LA to get that little rail. They just give it to you. Nobody's ever charged me on all of them that I bought, but they also don't offer it to you, and it's also not in the box. So you need to know that you need it if you have this type, and then you need to remember to ask for it because you probably won't be given it. So I hope I haven't put you off from searching one of these sinks out. Obviously, it takes a little bit of work to get one of these installed, but you have all the benefits that the sink comes with. Built-in backsplash. It is a very high quality sink, and really if you compare this sink to a sink that I would have gotten at Home Depot, this sink with the faucet included and the tax was about $94. So I think you'd be hard pressed to find something as good a quality as this at Home Depot for that price. So a little bit of work sourcing one out, but as far as I'm concerned, it really is well worth it. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I really do appreciate it. If you found this video useful, if you could just leave me a comment down below and click the like button, that'll let me know to go ahead and finish out the series here. So I've got a lot more information that, like I said before, really wouldn't fit on one video. Just talking about the pump, the plumbing, and the drain, as well as the water storage. So that would be helpful to me if you could do that, and I will see you on the next one.